Um, Hello, lovely new people. I'm so glad and only very slightly intimidated that so many of you are here. The honest to goodness truth is that when Misty very kindly and generously invited me to be part of her ongoing series about expat and immigrant life in the UK, I said yes because I thought it was going to be something that was really fun to do. I love hanging out with Misty. She's an incredibly cool person. If you found me through her, you don't need me to tell you that. She is a babe. But the truth of the matter is, I did not for one moment honestly expect the sheer number of people who would watch our conversation, or frankly, the hundreds and hundreds of lovely, lovely, lovely comments and engagement on our two-part series. Misty's audience is famously delightful. I think she has curated such a fantastic and kind internet space, and I am so delighted that she, number one, was willing to share it with me, and number two, that so many of you have found yourselves over in another odd little corner of the internet. Welcome! Misty and I definitely overlap in some aspects of the kind of content we do online. You know, we both do content about being immigrants in the UK and our experience here. But mostly what I do on this channel is a lot more media analysis, criticism, and engagement. I am a bookworm, I am a theater nerd, I am a TV, tizzy! I am a TV and film person. And I like talking about media. Most importantly though, I'd say I just like talking about things that I'm enthusiastic about. So hopefully you will find something fun and interesting to engage with in this space. I do expat and history content. I do political content because I'm sure you got this from the interview that Misty and I did together. I'm genuinely interested in both American and British politics and how they do and don't affect people like me. Hello, Tizzy. Want to come hang out? Want to come meet the people? This diva. So even though Misty is a true professional, she is exactly in real life the person you think she is online. What a baddie. Can't say enough good things about her, and I'm absolutely going to pressure her to do more stuff together because I like hanging out with her. I think I'm going to pressure her to do a day trip to meet with Cambridge because I think we'd have a really good time together. But I just love hanging out with her, and so thank you once again to her for even inviting me into her corner of the internet. And if you decide to hang out in mine, I promise to make it worth your while, even if it's going to be a little bit more chaotic and weird than her space. She's the pro. I'm just happy to be here. As a follow-up, I just put out a post on my channel to see if anyone would be interested in doing a Ask Me Anything sort of video to get to know me better and for you guys to hopefully get to know one another in my space a bit better. And y'all came through. So that's what we're doing today. A little informal coffee, dog in lap, Google Docs with your questions conversation. So hopefully that's interesting to you guys. Let's hang out. First up, what is your favorite holiday destination outside of the UK and why? Guys, this is impossible. I genuinely don't know if I can answer this because I have been so lucky to do so much traveling in my life. I tallied it up once upon a time, and I have traveled through, or spent, quality time in 40-something different countries. And I've done a lot of different kinds of holidays. I've done, lovely kind of beach and ocean holidays that are purely relaxing. And then I've done, hiking holidays and road trip holidays, and basically, I don't know how to answer this one. So I'm just going to give you some of the highlights of the favorite trips I've done, just kind of off the top of my head. When I was younger, my family and I got to travel a lot, obviously due to the nature of my dad's work. And one of the most interesting trips we did as a family was actually traveling through China. China is not always an easy place to travel in. It's definitely not easy for military members and their families to travel in. It was an amazing experience. And it was kind of an odd one, start to finish. One of the benefits of being a member of the US military is they have a system where, as a cheap option for travel, you can sign up to use military cargo planes to hop, that's what it's called, from different military locations for free. I cannot stress enough what an unglamorous, uncomfortable way to travel this is. Like, this is not commercial airfare, but it is a really interesting thing to do, just to say that you've done it. And, you know, if you're cheap, like my family sometimes was, you know, it was an easy way to get around. For the first leg of our trip from the island of Guam, which is where we were living at the time, to Japan, we hopped in a military cargo plane. That was both my parents, 4 children ranging from 5 to 16. We sat, not in chairs, we sat in cargo nets, strung and strapped together in the belly of a military cargo plane. You have to wear noise protectors and noise canceling headphones and ear protection because the din, the roar of the engines are so loud and there's no insulation against it. Speaking of no insulation, there's also no protection from the elements. So it's extremely cold traveling at that level of the atmosphere. These planes are not designed for comfort. They're designed for military convenience, right? Weirdly, depending on the humidity, clouds can actually form inside the military plane's cargo area, and you can get rained on while you're sitting in a cargo net, spending 10 hours hopping from an island in the Pacific. Like I said, not comfortable, but a good story. From Japan, my family and I then went to China, and we were able to spend time in Xi'an. We saw the Great Wall, we saw the terracotta warriors, we saw so many historic palaces and homes, open air markets. And then we went to Beijing, which was an amazing, amazing experience to see a city like that up close and personal. So that was, I wouldn't say that was a relaxing holiday, but it's definitely one that stands out. Another favorite family holiday we did was hiking Hadrian's Wall. Again, one of my favorite family holiday memories. And again, not very comfortable, but a really cool thing to do, particularly when one of your parents is a classics professor and can point out all of the weird and rude Roman graffiti along the way. It was a lot of fun. More recently, and perhaps a little bit more glamorously, one of my favorite holidays that I've ever done with Jeff is we did a week in the Greek islands. 'Twas beautiful. The most recent trip I did, though, was actually at the end of last year. I'm not the only expat immigrant in my family. My youngest sibling, my sister, actually moved to Tokyo and lives there with her husband. He is Japanese, she's American, and they got married last year, and Jeff and I and all my siblings and family and friends from around the world all flew in to Tokyo to celebrate their wedding, which was, apart from being a wonderful family experience, a cool cultural experience because they decided to do 2 ceremonies. They did one Western style ceremony. They also did a traditional Japanese Shinto ceremony, like an 800-year-old shrine. And my sister, who studies the professional art of kimono dressing, her gift to me and my sisters-in-law was to buy us full kimono outfit sets. Not the tourist stuff that you often see online that is basically a really beautiful bathrobe. I'm talking the multiple layers of padding and binding and belts and straps and different kinds of cloth scarves that build the unique shape of the kimono. So she bought us each a full traditional kimono outfit and paid for a professional dresser to dress us. So she, the bride, was in a full traditional wedding kimono, which is a totally different kind of outfit. And we, the sister and sister-in-law, all got to wear traditional Japanese thanks to his traditional Japanese dress. And then my siblings and I spent a week together in Kyoto and in the mountains and having a glorious time. This is a very long-winded response. To go back to the question, what is my favorite holiday destination? I'm gonna say my favorite holiday destination is whatever my next planned one is. Next question. They say London doesn't change much over time, but what do you think the biggest change you have noticed since first coming here is? Wow, this is a good one because Jeff and I have lived here now for the better part of 15 years, and we have watched quite literally the skyline of London change. We've seen a lot of the most prominent build programs happening. We have seen the build and the implementation of new transportation infrastructure like the Elizabeth line. We have seen new museums and performance centers open. We've seen big musicals come and go. You know, we've seen major acts and theater productions like Hamilton come to the UK. That was a big deal when it happened. More recently, things like Hadestown, you know, so productions that have started elsewhere, like on Broadway, and then come to the UK. We've also seen long-running shows close or move from a theater where they might have been performing for decades. We've seen a lot of construction. We've seen things like trends in cuisine come and go. Like on the restaurant scene, you will see trends of different ingredients or different cuisines come into or out of vogue, which has been really interesting. I've also seen different waves of immigration. So different kinds of people coming to the UK for different reasons. So different trends in, say, education. You know, you'll see different demographics of international students rise or fall. You'll see different kinds of demographics for investment rise and fall. You'll see different kinds of demographics of people moving to the UK or moving out of the UK. Which is to say, London is a city in constant change and flux, which is very interesting. But one of the things that I love it is that it can be a city of almost constant change, but still very much preserve the essence of itself and what it is and who it is. I love it here. I love it. I love it. I love London. Next question. Have you been to some of those historic pubs around London? Yes. Yes, I have. I think pub culture is truly one of the funnest parts of, you know, just kind of British common everyday life. And London is home to some really genuinely cool, historically significant pubs. So off the top of my head, some of the coolest ones that I've been to. Ooh, here's American in London for you. The Mayflower in Rotherhithe. This is a fantastic old pub on the banks of the Thames itself. It's named the Mayflower because the ship carrying the Pilgrim Fathers originally disembarked from Rotherhithe. I don't think the specific location of the wharf is known, but it is known to have been from that area. So this pub was named in honor of that ship and its historical legacy. And if you go in, they have actually put carvings or paintings or just fun notes about the history of the Pilgrim Fathers and the Mayflower expedition all over. It's a great pub. A very cool thing about them is they have totally leaned into the quirky heritage, and every year they do a Thanksgiving dinner service on American Thanksgiving. And for years, that's what Jeff and I did for Thanksgiving, because if you're not cooking the big meal for everybody, why not let someone else cook it for you? And why not do it at the Mayflower pub? It gets even more meta than that, though, when it comes to history, because the captain of the ship, the Mayflower, that transported the Pilgrim immigrants to the New World is also buried in the crypt of the church exactly across the street from this pub. So if you want a little slice of American history, Rotherhithe, baby. Another really cool pub, kind of in the same area, but on the other side of the river in Wapping, is the Prospect of Whitby. That's another historic pub that has London maritime history. It too leans into the local heritage of its space and what kind of happened around that part of the north side of the Thames. And what happened in that area was Wapping was famous for a lot of trials and hangings of pirates in the 18th century. So if you go to the Prospect of Whitby, I think they still have it. They have a noose hanging over from the edge of the Thames, because that's how the corpses of hanged pirates used to be displayed, for all and sundry to receive a warning about the perils of piracy. In addition to being a pub that goes back to at least the 18th century and earlier, it has a really cool feature, which is that it has a metal bar slab. So where the bartender serves his drinks from. And apparently this used to be a lot more common in British pubs, but over the early 20th century, it was changed. I think the metal was requisitioned, possibly for war purposes. So there are very, very few of this kind of old metallic bar slabs still existing in the UK, and the prospect of Whitby is one of them. There are a lot of other pubs in the areas that I've lived in that I could name. Maybe I'll do a whole video on some of those someday. But yeah, pub culture is great, and there's cool pubs to be had in London. Next question. Hello, like your name. Thank you. Here's your homework. In 500 words, are you happier now than you were? And if so, why? Pip pip, love. I like the cut of your jib. I'm assuming that this question means, am I happier here in the UK than I have been elsewhere? And the answer to that is yes. I have lived a lot of places. Like I keep saying, I've been really, really blessed to be able to travel a lot of places. I hope to keep traveling to other places, but I feel really, really lucky to have had the opportunity to build a life in the UK, in such a fantastic city. I think that living abroad as an American has given me a lot of opportunities that would not have been available to me had we stayed in the States. The reverse is possibly also true. You know, there are different pluses and minuses to a dramatic choice, such as, you know, moving away from your country of citizenship. It's definitely not something to do lightly. But if you go into it with your eyes open, if you are thoughtful about the choices that you make, if you are prepared to, adapt to the new country that you're living in, learn its systems, appreciate its culture and people, it can be a fantastic choice for a lot of people. Being a little bit more vulnerable, I have not loved everywhere that I have lived. Some places are genuinely easier to live than others. They might have better or worse infrastructure. They might have cultures or habits that you do or don't feel like you can gel with more easily. I didn't really like living in Utah, to be perfectly honest, and I'm a lot happier in the UK than I was in Utah on a really vulnerable level. And shout out to the NHS. I've also, mental health issues run in my family. I and a couple of my siblings have some inherited traits towards depression, especially. And one of the things that I'm very grateful for is the NHS system, because I have been able to receive swift and effective treatment for mental health issues when they've arisen, up to and including medication, but also therapy. So literally, when you ask, am I happier here? The answer is yes. And a big part of that is because when I have needed additional help or resources to be happy or to protect my happiness, I've had access to those tools and things here in the UK in ways that people in the US don't always. So on every level, yeah, I'm a lot happier here. Next, outside of London, what is your favorite place to visit in the UK? Again, another impossible question. I think the UK is glorious. I've been able to travel around to so much of it. I have been to all 4 of the nationalities within the UK, the Republic of Ireland as well. I love it. And I love how much variety and difference there is. Cornwall is different from the Cotswolds, is different from Essex, is different from the North, is different from the Midlands, is different from Scotland. I love it. If you really pressed me, I think I would say the north of England around Hadrian's Wall. It's so big and I don't know, fresh and open, and I've, really enjoyed the open air experiences I've been able to have up there. And maybe a little bit further north into Scotland. I'm really glad to have been able to travel in Scotland, both for pleasure and for work. I've been to some really, really fancy, posh places in Scotland, and I've stayed in hostels, road tripping around with my friends. I've been to the major cities like Edinburgh and Glasgow, and, spent, time on the Isle of Skye just hiking. Yeah, we're gonna say Scotland. But truly, I would take any opportunity to travel somewhere new in the UK that I get. I love it. Next up, I'd love for you to do something on your channel using your medievalist background, perhaps showing how current UK life is still shaped by its medieval past, like the class system, common land, Magna Carta, and subsequent reforms. This is a brilliant idea. And actually, just building on some of the comments I was rambling about earlier, most of my time in the UK, we have lived centrally in Bermondsey or Rotherhithe, or, in southeast London, in Lewisham, Blackheath, and Greenwich. And there is a surprising amount of hidden medieval history in all of these areas, plus a few other gems from other areas. So if you'd be interested in seeing a bit of a whistle-stop tour of my medieval London from my time living here, let me know, because I think that would be a really fun thing to do. Next question. You both have ink, meaning tattoos. What's the story behind it? If personal, please don't share. That's very sweet of you. Yes, both Misty and I have ink. You can see that in the video, in the series that we did. I actually don't remember off the top of my head if she's ever done any content where she specifically tells the story of her body art. I'll have a look, and if she does, I'll link it somewhere around here. But her body art is fantastic. I mean, the first time I met her, I think I blurted out, "Oh my God, I love your tattoos," because I thought they were so cool. She has such beautiful body art pieces that are really, really thematically important to her. And, when she let me look at her tattoo sleeves and told me the story behind them, and it was really cool. But I don't want to speak on her behalf. You can see a glimpse of some of my ink in that video, but yes, I have tattoos and I love talking about them. Maybe I'll put some, images around me. I have a back piece, and then I have 2 tattoos, one on each of my thighs. My first tattoo was actually a bee, a bumblebee on my back. And that was a significant tattoo for me because it was my first tattoo. And I got it specifically as kind of a tribute and a farewell in some ways to Mormonism. If you know anything about the history of Mormonism, the symbol of the bee is actually something that has a lot of historical significance to the Mormon community, and for Mormon women especially. So it was a very personal thing to choose to get one of those on my body. I found a tattoo artist who, I will link her details somewhere. She's based mostly in Canada now, but she does come back to the UK to work, I think at least once a year. She does the most beautiful kind of floral and fauna in black work that you have ever seen. So I first got a bee, and then for a subsequent birthday, I decided, let's go all out. And I expanded that tattoo significantly with a cluster that the same artist did the artwork for, of my favorite flowers, which are foxgloves, poppies, and tulips. So my bee has some blooms to buzz in. And that's, as I said, about a quarter of my back. Then my 2 thigh tattoos. One of them is very simple. It is a more black work, and it is a depiction of Winged Victory, the Nike of Samothrace, which is one of my favorite pieces of art ever. And then by the same tattoo artist, not the same one as my back, my 2 leg pieces were done by Jess at Three Kings Tattoo, which is a studio in Deptford in London, which again I will link. And she, for my 35th birthday, I'd had this vision in my head of a particular photograph from the 1920s. It is of a flapper and a journalist whose name was Lois Long. She was one of the first journalists who worked for the New Yorker publication when it was first created in the 1920s. And her beat specifically was the nightclub and speakeasy cultures of New York City. And don't forget, this is during the height of Prohibition. So she was doing basically illegal journalism work on the New York party scene. It was so clandestine that she couldn't actually even write under her real name. Her code name at the New Yorker was Lipstick. And there is a fantastic photo of her in her, flapper dress, kind of horrifying a Victorian kind of aunt or grandmotherly figure. And I've always loved that photograph. I've always loved kind of the story of Lois Long. And so, I took this photograph to Jess at Three Kings and asked her to do an interpretation of this for me. And she nailed it. So I'll put a photo up of the final piece, but I love how this turned out. This for me is also significant because I have a background in freelance journalism. I'm a lipstick connoisseur. Obviously, a little bit of law breaking and rule breaking maybe appeals a little bit too much to my character. And, the idea of kind of bucking against a Victorian culture that you might have come from also kind of spoke to me emotionally. So I love my art from both of these artists. I would like to get more ink in the future. And if I do, I'll absolutely tell you guys about it. Next question. Which English abbey or monastic building has the best running water toilet system by far? Well, you did ask. You're right, I did. Are you trying to out-nerd me? Are you trying to out-weird me? Challenge accepted. I am going to make the blanket statement that the Cistercian order was the best example of medieval water architecture and plumbing to be had. The things that monastic order was able to do in their abbeys and their construction was truly, truly groundbreaking, quite literally, at the time, and also preserved a lot of the known technologies from the Romans through to the modern period. In many cases, monastic complexes were the only kind of systems that were capable of organizing and distributing, mass complexes of water technology at scale. Not exclusively, obviously things like bathhouses still existed for civic centers and cities and towns at least of a certain size, but truly, the monastic complexes were where it was at. I think the best example is probably Melrose Abbey, which was a Cistercian abbey and was kind of famous for its system of plumbing that allowed it to have a kind of latrine system that could better dispose of human waste than others. So yeah, I'm going to say Melrose Abbey. Huh, you thought you got me. You thought you had me. Maybe as a runner-up, I would say the Abbey of St. Augustine in Canterbury. Not so much for a toilet system, which was your actual question, but again, for like a water management system. The only ruins that kind of remain today related to the waterworks are, a cistern, which used to feed the abbey, but more importantly, did not just feed the abbey complex. It also provided water towards the local municipality, so that when Henry VIII went on his resource mining expedition to close the abbeys and the monasteries in the 16th century, this abbey was one of them, but the waterworks survived the destruction of that monastic house and actually kept providing water systems, or it kept providing water and plumbing and water technology movement to things like local brewers or local municipal water systems. So yeah, those are my two favorite. Take that. For more reading on the topic, there is a book by I'm going to say Roberta Magnuson. I need to fact check myself on the title, but it's basically about water technology in the Middle Ages, and specifically about things like how monasteries, abbeys, and monastic orders, along with some other organizations, managed water systems and how important that actually was for medieval life and development. So I'll link that somewhere. It's over 20 years old as a book, but if you are interested in plumbing in the medieval ages, I have book recommendations for you. Next question. Watched 2 of your fantastic videos already. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Are you sure you fancy a political question? I really want to know when the war with Iran will be over. Oh boy. Earlier this year in January, like 1 week into 2026, I filmed a video kind of giving a very emotional reaction to the coup that the American government did in Venezuela. Obviously things have progressed since then, and while that video, you know, the actions in Venezuela was kind of the emotional impetus for that video, the actual substance of that video, which I will link because I genuinely think, even though it was unscripted, very much off the cuff, and has some less than professional video editing, please be patient with all of that, because I think I go into some very, very important information in there about American cultural power and influence. Again, I talk about pop culture and media mostly in this space, but not exclusively. And that often bleeds over into things like technology. So in that video, I talk about how witnessing an excursion of military power on behalf of the United States as an American, but from the benefit of distance, how it affected me, how I saw it, and why I thought it was actually more important on the global world stage than most Americans probably understood. I would say that the Iran war is actually very similar. There are a lot of people in America, you know, military hawkish people who are a lot more more military interventionist policies, who for a long time, you know, have been wanting to do something with military action against Iran. There are also a lot of people in the intelligence community who thought it would be a terrible idea to do that, not least of all because of the implications on global shipping or supply chain disruption, which would likely stem from a result of that conflict, and which we know has happened. What I'm about to say here is definitely a companion piece to that. The answer is, I don't know when the Iran conflict will be over. And that's because, from my perspective, from my observation, it seems as though the administration chose to take military action in Iran thinking it would be similar to what they did with Venezuela, where they basically went in, did a smash and grab, kidnapped the leader of another country, and got out again. The Iran conflict is and was always going to be fundamentally different. I happen to think we don't have very good faith or even smart people in charge of some very important things of the American government at the moment. The military is absolutely one of them. I've actually filmed a very, very casual, no makeup, again, very amateur kind of video about a recent incident in the American military hierarchy that I think has wider implications than, again, many Americans realize. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try and get it up on the channel later this week. Sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. The short answer to your question is, I don't know when the war in Iran is going to end. And the truth is, nobody does, because it was always going to be a mess starting a conflict like this, and there was never going to be an easy way out. It was, in my opinion, a mistake to have started this conflict. And more critically, I don't think enough Americans truly understand the second, third, fourth, fifth order implications of what this kind of disruption does to the global supply chain. We've already seen how it's disrupted the oil market, but don't forget that the oil market impacts all of our lives dramatically. We tend to think of it only in terms of fuel. It's not just fuel. I'm gonna do what I do and use a pop cultural reference. There is a fantastic clip from the show Landman that explains why disruptions in the oil market may affect more than you think. I'll link that somewhere, because even though it's pop culture and media, it is a really good summary of why disruption to an oil market affects other things than just transportation. Americans are often insulated for a time from the consequences of their political actions. And one of the things that I think is happening and that I have observed in my lifetime is that the tolerance for the rest of the world to put up with the more bullshit things that Americans often do is diminishing swiftly. Because that tolerance is diminishing, more American citizens, everyday people who have the privilege, I would say, of living in a degree of ignorance in some cases or indifference in others to what's going on in the rest of the world, are starting to feel financially, culturally, socially, politically, what it means to become less respected, less responsible, and less admired on the world stage. It's going to be a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn. It's going to be an expensive lesson for a lot of Americans to learn. Yeah, let me know if you're interested in a deeper discussion on this. I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Obviously, I can only offer my own perspective and opinion, but the answer to your question is the conflict is a mess. It should never have happened. All of the intelligence community predicted this, that the subsequent challenges would happen, would be the likely result if this kind of military action was taken. And because my nation is governed by some really, really terrible and not always very intelligent people, we're all kind of stuck dealing with the consequences of it. I'm very glad to live here and not there. Misty and I obviously talked a lot about class in our video, and there were some really, really cool follow-up comments or questions that I kind of want to touch on. I want to do so in a way that doesn't, maybe reveal someone's identity too much. But someone asked, I was wondering where we fall in the British class system as American immigrants to the UK. And they give some details about, their family's background and experience, education, and, economic performance, and how they feel like they don't really fit in anywhere. And in the context, especially of that conversation with Misty, I'm going to say, wondering where you fit in, the cultural zeitgeist of a new culture is a totally valid thing to think about and to question yourself on and to ask and to try and figure out. But if you are an immigrant to another country, or even, an expat there for a limited period of time, and you do find yourself struggling to figure out where you fit, I'm gonna go back to what I said in my video with Misty, that I know it's hard because this is a valid thing to think about and wonder about, but try not to worry about it too much. Focus most on being kind whenever you can, being polite always, being generous with other people as your default, and doing good work, whatever kind of realm you find yourself in. You might not ever find yourself on the inside, or you might not ever find yourself fitting neatly into anyone's category, and that's okay. The more important thing is to be comfortable and confident in yourself and your own experience, and to prioritize treating other people with kindness and respect. Eventually, because you don't fit in anywhere, you can learn to fit in anywhere, is what I would say. This is a fun one. German here. In some kind of American perspective, we Europeans are all living under socialism. Is it true that they think this way? I'm proud to live in such a society because I think we care about our people, whatever it takes to make a world worth living in. This is a really good question. The short answer is no. Not all Americans think that all Europeans, and I'm including Britain in that, are socialists. That is a very sloppy shorthand way that a lot of Americans, particularly in the political class, like to group Europe, which is, of course, dozens of different nations and languages and cultures and political systems, each having their own political parties and their own unique bundle of solutions to welfare systems or voting or how to manage, national infrastructure. Like, Americans don't like things to be complicated, and there is a tendency, particularly in American rhetoric, to lump a lot of complicated things together in an overly simplistic way and to badge it in a way that allows them to dismiss it, criticize it, reject it, or frankly, just not have to engage with the complexity. Are there socialist policies in Europe using the, political socioeconomic definition? Absolutely, of different levels and varieties. Is Europe and Britain on the whole more socialist than America? Yes, no question, because over here, I think there's a better and broader understanding of the role that the state can or should play in providing a degree of social safety. Misty and I go into that a lot in our conversation. Whereas in America, there's that culture of rugged individualism, which again, I criticize in that conversation. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, I'd be happy and delighted to go into more detail. But no, not all Americans view all Europeans as socialists. But many Americans are encouraged to think of you simplistically as a single block and group of people. And it's mostly by bad faith actors who are trying to manipulate them for voting or political purposes. I'm sorry we're like this. And then just some of my favorite comments in kind of the religion talk. Someone said that they were related to a group of people that moved to America and started the Quaker movement, which is very cool, and thought that this was related to the talk of genealogy that Misty and I did. And I just thought that was fantastic because, in my opinion, being connected to a weird niche little religious offshoot group is kind of peak personal lore, but weirdly a lot of Americans have some connection to a weird religious movement somewhere in their family history. All you have to do is look and you will find something. One of my favorite little bits of family history is that my husband is actually descended from first generation Mormon leadership, like the OGs that surrounded Joseph Smith and Brigham Young as the first and second leaders of the faith, particularly. And actually, one of my husband's ancestors even broke off and started his own cult in the 19th century. So, family's weird, man. This one made me cackle. Misty and I talked about, the marketing scheme where you can buy yourself a title. And someone said, I just asked my brother to get me a lordship for my birthday. As a prank, because they're incredibly eccentric and they intend to include it on every letter and email they send in the future. And all I can say is, I wholly encourage this kind of whimsy and shenanigans, and I congratulate your lordship on your elevation to the peerage. Finally, someone said, I think we need to invite some Mormon missionaries on for a chat on the channel. And you know what? We're not going to do that to those kids. Those kids are delightful, and if you ever see them on the street, please be nice to them, because they are truly wholesome little babies, usually very far from home and trying to be a force for good in the world. But we're not going to traumatize any sincere, good-hearted children on this channel. But Misty and I might actually have to get together and do another conversation just on Mormonism, because there's a lot to talk about. And in fact, the video that I teased you about the military also has a Mormon component. So if you're at all interested in Mormonism or military or American politics, that's going to be a weird little niche video for your enjoyment. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, that was my first ever Ask Me Anything Q&A. I hope it was fun for you guys. Again, I just want to say thank you to anyone who found me through that interview with Misty. It was such a pleasure to do. It was so generous of her to do. We absolutely are going to find a way to do something together in the future, because it's a blast. And even if my channel is a little bit different in tone and just overall goblin energy and chaos compared to hers, I hope you stick around and find some fun things to talk about. But maybe I'll do something like this in the future. If you have any follow-up questions from anything that I talked about today, please drop them in the comments below. I will absolutely keep track of them. And if you have any ideas or requests of suggestions of particular video topics that you want to see based on this chitty chat today, please let me know about that too. So yeah, to conclude, I'm so grateful that so many new people are here. I hope you like hanging out with me, and we will chat again soon, kittens.